Okay, right. So what do you mean by object oriented programming? Okay, today if you look at the course, right, we'll start off with the concept of OOPS. What do you mean by objects? What do you mean by object oriented programming and how it helps us? Right. Look, the thing is, um, Java or any other language compared to Java, like even you go for Python or even if you go for C Sharp, okay, every language is object oriented these days. And what is the advantage of a language being object oriented? If you talk about C language, it is not object oriented. Alright, so we'll see that today. Let me create a new Java project, okay, and I will name this project as day 2. Fine. And in day 2, right, what I'll do is that I will add all the jar files of Selenium. Fine. First of all, let me do this. In every project, you have to add all the jar files, whatever project you are creating. Right, it is mandatory. Right. Now, after you have added the jars, in the source folder, let me create a new class known as car.java. Right. Okay. Now, what are the properties of the car class? Okay. For example, hold on, I'll remove this main function. String name of the car class, int price of the car class. Okay, so these are the two properties of the car class. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the object of this car class. Right, I'll just create a new class known as test car. Right, and in this other class test car, I'm going to create the object of the car class. Okay, right, so just a minute. Right. So out here, what you can do, you can write something like this: car C equals to new car. Now, what do you mean by this line? New car means the object of the car class has been created. Hold on, I'll just remove this part. I'll just write over here new car. So this means that in the memory, okay, in the memory you have this object of the car class with two properties, name and price. Okay, it gets created in the memory. You can create as many objects as possible. I can create 3 objects by writing this. Okay, so what will happen in the memory? You will have 3 objects created. Okay, every object will have the property name and price. Every object can be initiated with different name and different price. Okay, but for doing that, you need to create the reference. I can write over here car C1 equals to new car C2 equals to new car, and car C3 equals to new car. C1, C2, C3, they become the references of the car class. Okay, C1, C2 and C3, they become the references of the car class. They point towards the object. Okay, C1 will point here, C2 will point here, and C3 will point here. With C1, C2 and C3, you can change the state of the object. You can change the variable values and all everything. You can access these objects. I can write over here, say C1 dot name is car A, C2 dot name is car B, and C3 dot name is car C. So C1, C2, C3 are the object references with which I can change the state of the object. Okay. you can print over here c1.name, c2.name, c3.name. Okay, so when you run it, it prints the same thing. So what happens in the memory? Okay, in the memory you have got these three objects. Hold on. You have got these three objects, and these three objects, they have the names defined like A, B and C. So with the help of these objects, you can give a value to every property. You can also initiate price property, anything. Okay, right. So what happens is, with the concept of object, right, you can give the value of just these two properties which are there in the car class. You can give a different value to each of these two properties. Okay, right. So out here, right, out here, what you can do is, you can also create a function in this class known as public void start. Right. So inside it you can print starting car, and you can print the name of the car. So when you go to test car out here, right, and if you run this, like, it will run normally, and if I write over here c1 dot start, c2 dot start and c3 dot start, now start function will also become part of every object. Okay, start function will also become, start function will be there in every object. Okay, like this. Right. So what will happen is that when C1 will call the start function will print the name of C1. When C2 calls the start function, it will print name of C2, and when C3, it will print name of C3. So out here, what will happen is that this start function is writing starting the class and the name, starting the car and the name of the car. So which name it will print? It will print the name of the corresponding object which is calling it. Okay. So when you run it, it will print starting car A, B and C. Right. Okay. So out here, this is also one of the good things, right? That is, you can have a separate instance of the variables and the functions defined in the car class. Okay, you can have a separate instance for each of the variable and function inside the object. Okay, now suppose this, hold on, this is known as a non-static global variable. It is not static. What is static? We'll talk about it. Okay, it's a global variable. It is not inside the functions. Okay, this is also a non-static global variable. This is known as a non-static function. Okay, right. So out here, if suppose I have a property int wheels. Now what I'll do is that every car has got 4 wheels. So if I initiate the wheels, then I'll have to write c1 dot wheels equals to 4, C2 dot wheels 4, C3 dot wheels 4. Now this is a little weird. We know that all the cars will have 4 wheels. Okay, so it doesn't make sense to initiate wheels inside every object. In every object I cannot keep the wheels property. It's little weird. All the objects have the same number of wheels, right? So what we do is that we make wheels static. So when you make it static, okay, what happens is that it no longer will remain the part of the object. Okay, wheels will be stored as a variable somewhere out here in the memory, and all the objects can access this. Okay, it will not be a part of the object if you write static. If you have to access the wheels, right, you don't have to access it like this. See, this is giving me yellow sign. Yellow sign means a warning that wheels is not a part of the object. Don't try to access it with the object reference C1, C2, C3. Look, object and object reference are different things. If I write car C1 equals to new car, then new car is the object and C1 is the reference. I can write like this, that car C4 equals to null. That means C4 is not pointing anywhere. And on the new line I can write C4 equals to new car. Okay, right. So it depends on me if I want to initiate the reference or not. Object and object references are different. Out here it is telling you a warning that with the reference C1 you are trying to access the static variable wheels. The static field should be accessed in static way. You should not access the static variables like this. Static variables can be accessed directly with the class name. You can write in the beginning car dot wheels equals to 4. Directly with the name of the class you can access the static variables. But if you want to access the non-static properties, you have to create the object. Okay, I cannot write over here car dot name equals to say Z. It's not allowed. Alright, fine. Right. So out here, hold on. Right. Out here, we have some static properties in this class, some non-static. Right. This is about Java. In Java, you will have few static things, few non-static things. For accessing static things, you have to create the object. For accessing non-static, for accessing static things, you can directly access it with the class name. For accessing non-static, you have to create the object of the class. Right. Now, what I can do is that I can move the references as well. So this is clear. What I told you till now. Okay, if I tell you in short, there are two properties, non-static. This have to be accessed with the object. The other property is static, which can be accessed with the class. Right. Okay. And third thing, object and object reference is different. Now, what do you exactly mean by that? Okay, what do you exactly mean by that? Hold on. You can hold on. Suppose in this case, what is happening is that, let me explain. We had three objects. Okay, right? And C1 was pointing towards the first object, C2 was pointing towards second object, and C3 was pointing towards third object. The name of the first object was A, then B, and then C. Okay, right. So out here, if I write in my code, okay, if I go and write in my code C1 dot, hold on, or C1 equals to C2. Now what do you mean by this? Okay, let me put a demarcating line out here. Okay, now if I write C1 equals to C2, okay, right, then that means C1 will start pointing where C2 was pointing. You can move the references. You can move the references. Let me show you practically. Okay, if I after this, if I write system.out.println C1.name, C2.name and C3.name. If I run it, see this is printing B, B and C. Because in the memory, what I told when I wrote C1 equals to C2, I moved C1 from here and I made it point towards B. So both C1 and C2 will refer to B. Okay, right. Fine. So B is an object to which two references point and both of them can change the state of this object. Okay, if I write over here C1 dot name equals to X and I again print these three things. Okay, C1 dot name, C2 dot name, C3. If I run it, you see that it prints X for C1 and C2 both, because one reference can change the state of the object, the other one will get the updated value. Alright, object and object references, they are different things. Object is different than object reference. Alright, fine. Object and object references, they are different. You have to understand this point because in Java we will be doing this. Alright, right. So out here, the next concept. Okay, you got to know about object, you got to know about object and object references. Both they are different. Okay, and static concept, non-static concept. Now how do we use this in Selenium? I already have the jar files of Selenium included. Okay, let me talk about Firefox. Okay, let me talk about Firefox, how you can work with Firefox. Now to work with Firefox, the first thing is that in Selenium 3, if you open a browser, this question being asked, why name and price is static and wheel is not? Wheel is not static because the reason why we didn't make wheel static, because the value of wheel is same for all the objects. It doesn't make a sense to have a variable wheel inside every object. It doesn't make sense. Alright. Because each of these objects will have the same value. So we make wheel static, we move it out of the object, and it is common for all the objects. Right? Right. So out here, we have, hold on, we have got these three objects and all, everything is fine. Now to work with Firefox, okay, like if you go to the Selenium website, if you go to the download page to work with Firefox, the first thing is that, right, but if we make wheel and 2, then no, if wheel is, look, static is always same. If I'm defining wheels 4 is equal to 4, it will become 4 for all the objects. If I define number of wheels 2 over here, it will become 2 for all the objects. It is always a non-static property. Okay, right. You have to understand this, right? It will always be the same for everyone, for every object. Alright. Now to work with various drivers, there are various drivers in Selenium. Okay. What do you mean by drivers? Let me tell you that. Let me go to the Java documentation. Okay. And in the Java documentation, we have, if you scroll down, you will see the WebDriver interface and you'll see WebDriver over here. Okay. Look, these are the various drivers in Selenium. Okay. What do you mean by various drivers? For every browser we have a different driver class whose object we create to work with that driver. For example, Chrome driver is for Chrome, Edge driver is for Edge, right? Firefox driver is there for Firefox, Opera for Opera. Remote web driver is used in case of when we work with when we work with Selenium GRID. Okay, Safari driver is, as it suggests, Safari. Event firing driver, it is used to fire complex user gestures, right? Okay, so that's the thing. So there are various driver classes whose object we create, right, to work with them in Selenium. Alright, now how do you do that? Let me talk about Firefox driver. Okay, if I create the object of Firefox driver in Eclipse, right, let me create a new class. Oh, sorry, Selenium basics. If I write over here new Firefox driver, okay, you will have to move the mouse over this and import, right, import Firefox driver. And if I run this program, hold on, if I run it, you will see that an exception will come up, right? Okay, now what is this exception? It clearly demonstrates that part2exe must be set by this property and all, right? Look, the thing is, there are some exes which you need to download in case of all the three driver classes, Mozilla, Firefox, IE and all, right? So if you go to official website of Selenium, hold on, if you go here, scroll down, you will see Mozilla Gecko driver. Okay, you click on this link and hold on, go over here and you can download the file for your OS. For 64-bit Windows operating system, this is the one most of the people use this these days. For Mac also, this is the file. Okay, so once you download it, like I have kept it in my PC at this location, geckodriver.exe. You don't need to run it. Okay, you need to set a system property. Okay, you need to write in your code, you need to write like this, system dot set property WebDriver dot Gecko.driver to the path of this exe. Okay, this exe Gecko driver, hold on, you have to write it like this. So what do you mean by this? Okay, system.set property WebDriver.Gecko.driver. Okay, right. So out here, if you run this code, okay, if I run this code, you will, yeah, it has to find Gecko driver in exe file. Look, the thing is, this has to be in lowercase. Sometimes people write it in W in capital and then they say, then the code fails and all everything. Okay, right. So this will be the problem, right? So out here, if you run this, now you will see that a blank Firefox will open up. You see that this is the blank Firefox which just got opened up, right? Okay, so just by creating the object of Firefox driver, I am able to launch a Firefox. So you need the object reference. You can also make an object reference. Firefox driver, say f1 equals to this, and with f1 you can access many functions, with which many non-static functions with which you can control the Firefox driver. Okay, right. So for example, f1.get, you can give the URL, it will navigate to that URL, right? So you need to set the system properties. It is very important. System is a class and set property is a static function inside that class. So you can directly call it with the class name, because static things can be directly called with the class name. And in the URL, it's mandatory to give the protocol. If you don't give the protocol, it will, right, it will actually be an issue. Okay, so when you run this code, right, you will be navigated to yahoo.com. So out here, writing the protocol is important. It's not like QTP. In QTP, you can just write yahoo.com. Okay, out here in Selenium, you have to give the complete protocol. Okay, yeah, yeah, you have to write it. This is a system property which you need to set. This is how it works. This is how it works. This is how Selenium 3 is made. In Selenium 2.x, this line was not there. Okay. Yes. Right. So, right. So out here, you have got other drivers as well. For example, for Chrome, you have got Chrome driver. So if you want to work with Chrome driver, you can create the object of, look, in Eclipse, if I just write Chrome and hit Control space bar, I will get all the classes which are starting with the word Chrome. Okay, so Chrome driver, you don't need to write everything. You create the object of Chrome driver. Sorry. Right. And it will work on Chrome. But for Chrome driver, you need to download this Google Chrome driver exe from here, from this link. Okay, you can go to, hold on, yeah, no, it's not opening. Yeah, you can go to this link, right, and you can use this for Windows. Even if you have a 32-bit Windows or 64-bit, you can use this zip file, download it, and for Mac also there is the file out here, for Linux as well, right? You can download, and in my PC I have downloaded it out here, chromedriver.exe, and all you need to do is that you need to write again system.out.println WebDriver dot chrome.driver. Okay, right, and you can give the path to fdrive drivers and chrome driver.exe. So when you run this code, okay, you can also write over here cd.get, you go to yahoo.com. Okay, and when you run this code, you'll see that Chrome launches, and I have some issue, I have to update Chrome. Make sure you have the latest version of Chrome and latest version of Firefox. Don't work on older version of Firefox. Selenium 3 will work on the latest version of Firefox. Okay, right, if you have Firefox 40 or 37 or older version, don't, please uninstall, please upgrade it. Okay, I have to upgrade my Chrome, after that it will start working on Chrome. Alright, fine. Now out here, if you want to work on I, for working on I there is a driver known as Internet Explorer driver, I driver, right, and you have to create the object like this. If you just write over here enter, okay, you'll get all the classes starting with this word, and you can filter, keep on filtering them. This is the class Internet Explorer driver, I equals to new Internet Explorer driver. For I also you have to download an exe file from the website of Selenium, okay, seleniumhq.org. Go to the download section, and based out here you will see Internet Explorer driver server based on 32-bit I or 64-bit I. You can download it. Go to this 64-bit link, you can download that. In my PC again I have kept out here iDriver server.exe. So all you need to do is similar line, system.set property webdriver.i.driver, and you have to give the path of iDriver server exe, right, and you can simply write I.get to yahoo.com. So this will launch your I, and this will take I to Yahoo. So these are the basic drivers. See, it is launching and it will take it. These are the basic drivers which you would be using. But the question arises that will each of these drivers, will I have to learn, because majorly these three browsers people work on, okay, will I be learning the function inside each and every driver separately? What if I have to write a script which works on all the browsers? Okay, what if I want to write a dynamic script which first runs on I, then on Firefox, then on Chrome? Will I have to repeat the code for every driver or every driver class? So these are the few questions which come into mind, right? And the answer to that is actually no, you don't have to do it like that. Okay, you don't have to memorize each and every driver separately and the functions inside them, right? You just create the object and access the non-static functions. You can access static functions by writing the class name dot, and you'll get the static things, but There are hardly anything static inside these classes, right? So out here tomorrow when we start with the concept of interfaces, you will come to know that how these drivers are related to each other and why don't you need to create a separate or you don't need to learn all of them. Okay, it will be covered in these concepts and all everything interfaces, right? So I'll stop here for today. Okay,